Well, look, I think once the courts decided to not bless the plan of arrangement in December, we had to look at all the options on the table. At that time, having UEC providing funding at a premium to the market, at a premium to the implied ISO offer price, was important to us. So we're looking at what shareholders would potentially get in terms of value. Also, the fact that we have an existing shareholder looking to put that kind of money to work, and being partnered with one of the largest and leading uranium companies in the U.S. Is a great place for us to be, and kind of legitimizes our story and our opportunity. And then I think finally we've got to look at the complementary monies coming from an existing equity and debt shareholder, Extract, willing to put up another $8 million US to facilitate the transaction, which results in about a $26 million influx of funds. I think that for investors, knowing that we're getting money from significant shareholders, a leading U.S. player, to facilitate a drive to advance the assets that we hold, and also look to help us list in the U.S. I think those are significant things for shareholders that we wouldn't necessarily have gotten out of the ISO transaction. We do. We've had a good relationship with UEC for a number of years. We transacted with UEC back in 2022, which resulted in us holding a significant number of hard rock assets. We swapped out our Wyoming assets for slick rock, which we've been advancing very recently. So in some ways, we're almost like a complementary piece to the UEC story. UEC is an ISR story. We're a hard rock story. UEC still has hard rock assets within its portfolio, which we think are interesting, and ultimately we'd love to talk to UEC about transacting down the road. So we certainly do think there are ways for us to transact with UEC down the road. I think consolidating assets in the U.S., especially producing assets or assets which allow for processing, I think is a very smart move on the part of UEC, and slows down the potential entrance of new players into the market. So right now, if we're looking at on the hard rock side, we own a mill, Energy Fuels owns a mill, and now UEC owns a mill, and so that provides UEC with significant flexibility in terms of how it plans to move forward on the production side, and certainly increases the number of pounds and the capacity for production for UEC. So I think it's a very smart move. Certainly, does block others from entering the market, and opens up the door in terms of flexibility in terms of how UEC decides it wants to produce, whether it's through ISR means or through hard rock down the road. We're looking at probably NYSE American as the easiest path forward for the company, and we think that's probably a 90 to 120 day undertaking, and so there's a number of steps that we have to take from kind of a Canadian reporting perspective to make sure that we're in compliance with the needs of the exchange. We are working with our law firm plus a U.S. law firm to facilitate that process. So we're in the middle of that now, and so UEC has offered to give us a hand as we move forward here. If there's anything they can do to open any doors, etc. Certainly they'll be happy to work with us. But we have started the process, and we'd expect it to take 90 to 120 days. Well, so the increased credit facility through Extract, those funds will primarily be used to pay back the loan that we had with ISO, also to potentially cover off the indemnity that ISO had put in place with regard to a bond increase associated with Shootaring Canyon Mill. And then the $15 million will obviously go to pay legal fees associated with the terminated transaction, but primarily will be used for the advancement of our assets. For example, we did drill at Slick Rock last year. Our aim for Slick Rock this year is to get a plan of operations in place, and then a mine plan, so we can move that asset as far forward as we can in 2025, with a plan to open up the mine in 2026 and be prepared for production, late 2026, early 2027. At the mill site, we plan to do some demo work. Our license allows us to do some demolition work at site. So, for example, we'd remove the power generators that are there now. Those are old, and we need to replace them with something which is in compliance today. So we'd have power at site, and also start removing things like the leach tanks that will be replaced. So it allows us to kind of prepare for the construction phase once we do get the license in place, and certainly it'll shorten that period because we'd like to get all the things that we can remove now in anticipation of replacing those things, once the license is up and ready. So it'll shorten the timeline. So we're going to be spending some time at the mill doing some cleanup, some demoing, some replacement of parts, but certainly, power generation is a big thing for the mill. We're also going to be looking at, completing the plan of operations at Velvet Wood. We're very close to completing that process. Ideally, some point this year, we'll get in underground to start dewatering the mine. Once we've, secured the plan of operations, and then ultimately have the mine permit in place, the large mine permit in place, so we can do some work. And the idea, once again, is by end of this year, early next year, on the Velvet Wood side, we'll be prepared for potential production at site. And then finally, Juan Marquez de Foya, we don't really talk about the Juan de Foya asset very much, but we'll be looking to potentially do some drilling there, working with the NRC for permitting, do some met testing, and ultimately look for some kind of mine planning at site. That is probably kind of late this year, early next year. But the idea here is that we're going to do as much as we can with the funds that we do have to advance all of our assets one step closer to production. So the first thing is that we need to complete the reactivation plan process with the state. The state had actually paused it while we were going through the transaction and has restarted it as of last week. And so we'd expect to see some requests for further information as the review continues over the next, call it 12 months. And while that's happening, we'll be looking to work at site to start some pre-construction work. I mentioned, the deconstruction, demolition of some items at the mill which won't be required in the future that we'll be replacing, adding power at site, replacing the electrical, things like that, which allow us to at least get some further work done while we start to look at cleaning parts of the mill, the SX system, removing the leach tanks. We've got wooden leach tanks in place right now, which will be replaced by steel tanks in the future. So it'll be kind of a parallel process. So we'll be working with the state on advancing the actual application itself, but we'll also be doing some pre-construction work at the mill in order to put ourselves in a position that we can hit the ground running once the license has been approved. Well, look, I think it remains positive. I think we have to understand there's a lot of noise in the market right now, but I think ultimately, they're still building reactors. There's still a shortfall in terms of mining and production. We can see what's happening in Kazakhstan. There's a shortage of acid in Kazakhstan, which is affecting kind of production rates, et cetera. But, they're still building reactors. So ultimately there need to be pounds, provided to run those reactors. So I think that, without, with all the noise in the marketplace, it really doesn't affect the underlying fundamentals, that there is growth in the nuclear sector, there's a need for uranium, and there's a lack of uranium in the market today. So, we're going to see higher prices in the near future, and certainly we'll be positioned to take advantage of those higher prices.